Alright, so welcome on back. This is going to be for Algebra 1 and our test on essentially inequalities. That's largely what we've covered for this quarter. So we're working with inequalities, the additive property, multiplicative property, graphing inequalities on a number line, not on an XY plane just yet. And then, what was the other one? That was it, pretty much. And then we've done inequalities that are slightly more complex and mixes the additive and the multiplicative rules. Oh, and then inequality word problems. I've already done most of this, so I'm going to focus on two things for today. I'm going to focus on graphing, because that wasn't covered in my last video, and this one shouldn't take long at all. You should be able to get the hang of this pretty quickly and easily. But then we also have the word problems. So I'm just going to cover the couple of word problems that I have on the test. I have decided that it is just going to be those two that I mentioned before. I'm not going to bother with any more than that. So hopefully you'll be comfortable with handling these. The test is only like 14 questions long, so should not be bad. Or wait, actually, I'm sorry. The 3 that I put on the test, I did change that. My apologies. So I did change that, so there are 3 of these on the test. We're going to cover all 3 of these today. Let's go and start with graphing, though. So really simply, there are a couple of things you have to remember with graphing. These two signs, greater than and less than, these lead to open dots. Open dots. Okay? And then if they have the bar underneath, so that greater than or less than equal to, these are going to have closed dots. Couple of other really simple rules. Let's see, so here's this. Another really simple rule is that our number line is read from left to right. Okay, so it doesn't matter where the number line starts, but you do have to make sure that it reads from left to right, so that you can do this, you know, -8, -7, -6, -9, etc., etc. That's fine, because this counts left to right. Like, it gets bigger as you go towards the right. You know, this is the same as going like this, so 0, 1, 2, 3. What you cannot do is you cannot do this. You cannot start at 0 and go 1, 2, and then suddenly go like -2, -1. That's not how that works, okay? So it goes -1, -2. It gets more negative the more left you go, and it gets more positive the more right you go. So make sure that you're doing that. A lot of you guys are making that mistake in class. All right? So let's go ahead and do a quick example of graphing. Real quick example of graphing. 3x, -3x plus 3 is greater than equal to 10. Sorry. Let's do this one. That way we end up with whole numbers, so it's easier to graph. Okay? Again, we have our steps. So remember, our steps are just distribute. This is in the other video as well, but distribute, add and subtract where necessary, multiply and divide, and then simplify. So we don't have any distribution in this one. That's fine. Don't even stress it. But we do have some adding and subtracting, so let's get rid of this plus 3. Alright, you'll get -3x is greater than equal to 9. 12 minus 3 is 9. And then divide both sides by -3. Okay, these will cancel out. You're just left with x. Remember, when you divide or multiply by a negative on both sides, this sign flips around. Okay, so it's going to be like this instead. And 9 divided by -3 is just -3. This we've already gone over in the other video. If that was quick, go ahead and find the other videos labeled inequalities. It would be the one right before this one. Or wait, no, I'm sorry. 2 before this one. And we'll go ahead and graph it. So make your number line. And what I recommend is just to start with this number. So whatever this number is, put it right in the middle. -3. And let's go ahead and count up. -2, -1, 0. Oh, sorry. 0. And it could keep going. It doesn't really matter how far you go. Now let's go to the more negative side. -4, -5, and this could keep going as well. Anyway, now that you have your -3, just decide whether or not you have an open or closed dot. So remember from our rules, if they have that little bar underneath it, they are going to be closed dots. So you're going to do a closed dot, nice and dark. And then look at which way your arrow is pointing. So it's pointing over here to the right. So we're just going to go ahead and make our arrow to the right as well. That's it. That's graphing. So most of you guys got a hold of this in class. I'm not too stressed about it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. But let's go ahead and talk about these word problems because these are throwing people off. There are going to be 3 specific ones that are on your test, obviously with different numbers, but same idea. The word problems we solve with the same 4-step process, everything is pretty much the same. It's just translating them that a lot of you guys are having trouble with. So let's talk about really simply something like this. So the sum of a number and 5 more than twice the number is less than, I really should have, let me write this all in one line just for purpose of my example, than 50. Find the number. Okay, and this models something exactly like you're going to see on the test, and you're just going to go through it. As soon as you see words, go ahead and cross them out if that helps. So we've done these word problems before. I've talked about many different styles of doing them. The bucket method works. Translating them straight out works. Logically reading them works. Another strategy is that we can just cross off the words as we translate them. So the sum of a number. So here's a number, right? And every time we do a number, we just call it x. And 5 more. So more is plus, then twice the number is less than. So the reason I wanted this all online, because if is less often means subtraction, but is less than, so less than. Remember, less than signs are this. Okay, and greater than signs are the opposite way. So is less than 50. Now let's go ahead and find the number. Now that we've translated it, we used all the words, except for of and technically a, and that kind of thing. But we've used all the words. So let's go ahead and just work it out. X plus 2x is 3x plus 5, still less than 50. Let's go ahead and basic inequality, get rid of that plus 5, minus 5, minus 5. 3x is less than 45. And then divide by 3. X is less than 15. By the way, I didn't really think about it, so your word problems on the test do not require you to graph on a number line. You can actually just leave your answer like this in the end. Okay, and you'd be all set here. So you'll notice that went by pretty quickly. This is one of our more basic examples, but hopefully you'll be able to memorize this way. Just keep in mind on the test, it might not be sum, it might be the difference, it might be 10 less than twice or thrice the number, who knows. The point is, it's different from this, but it's going to follow the same kind of pattern. All you have to do is go through and write the different values. So the sum is addition, a number, and something else. So 5 more than twice the number. It's all translatable. So you really shouldn't be having too many issues with these problems, especially because this one especially is a basic problem. Now the next one is going to be a little bit harder because it is going to deal with percentages and whatnot. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one. Let's see. So I'm just gonna Mr. Johnson, and again the names will change. Or wait, no, I have a student name. Okay, let's go with like Mr. Ram. There. Yeah, I don't have a single student named that. Mr. Ram. I don't know. Anyway, Mr. Ram wants a yearly interest. Income on his 12% investment to be greater than $6,000. How much should he invest? So how much should he invest to get this? So how much should he invest? Okay. You're going to get a problem like this. And it's a fairly simple idea. This one's a more basic of the percentage problems. Remember, percentage is always percentage of some number. Okay. So whenever we take a percentage of some number, it's that percent times that number, or whatever that number might be. So Mr. Ram wants yearly interest income on his 12%. So 12%, remember, to change a percent to a decimal, we take the decimal and move it over twice. So this is like 0.12. So I'm going to write it as 0.12. Investment to be greater than 6,000, greater than 6,000. And remember, it's always percent of something. It's of some number. We don't know what that number is, so I'm going to call it X. You can call it a question mark. N for number, whatever makes you happy. So 12% or 0.12 of something is greater than 6,000. And that's greater than 6,000. So let's find out how much he should invest. Let's find out what that X is. You're just going to, if this were a regular number, so this were 3X, we would just divide by 3. So we're just going to divide by whatever it is. 0.12 divided by 0.12. And when we do this, you would probably want to use a calculator for this. You can absolutely do it by hand, but it's not really that big a deal regardless, however you want to do it. But you're going to end up here with X is going to be greater than $50,000. So he needs to invest minimally $50,000. Okay? So again, this is that whole problem. Some guy wants to invest in something. He gets a 12% return. 12% of something has to be bigger than 6,000. So we just have to set it up as 12% of some number of means multiply is greater than 6,000. And then when you solve it, you'll get this. Again, you can use a calculator for this if you have to. The one I do on the test is honestly, the numbers are a little bit easier, at least the percent numbers. So you don't have to... You don't need a calculator for this test. The numbers I use are really pretty and they work out nicely, but if you want a calculator, you're more than welcome to it. Okay, so that's that problem. And then one last problem that I really liked that you guys have is this chair problem. So it suits us, suits the school. It's just kind of a fitting problem. It's a very realistic issue. So each chair installed in the new chapel. Installed in chapel. I'm not going to make it new. I'm just going to make it old. Requires... Oh, that's an R. Requires 24 inches of clearance. If each row cannot be greater, so it can't be greater than 35 feet in length. Oh my handwriting is getting really bad. How many chairs? Alright, so how many chairs in each row? This kind of problem requires a couple of things. The first thing you have to notice is that you have inches and feet. So we obviously have to do a little bit of change here. You can either change the inches to feet or the feet to inches. You'll have to remember that there are 12 inches in a foot. On the test, you're going to get the exact same type of problem. These numbers will be different, but it will be inches and feet, and you'll need to do the conversion. So I'm going to change my inches to feet. So to change 24 inches into feet, I'm just going to divide by 12. So this is like, I'm going to write this in red. This is or 2 feet. If on the other hand you wanted to do it the other way and you wanted to do you wanted to go ahead and do this into inches, you would just have to take that value and multiply by 12. So that's going to give you, what is that? It's like 420. Let me grab a calculator real quick. So 12 times 35.